She is, let me just pull her bio up, right? So her name is Dr. Sylvia Jordan. She served as city councilwoman in Southfield, Michigan for over 17 years, receiving numerous community awards. She's a serial entrepreneur, a pastor's wife, a mother, a grandmother, a sister, a friend, a dynamic speaker, an author, a life coach, and a successful businesswoman. She holds a bachelor's degree in urban development from Michigan State University and performed graduate studies at Oakland University. She recently was awarded an honorary doctorate degree for her humanitarian and community engagement. She has traveled and spoken extensively throughout the United States and abroad on global and personal leadership development, entrepreneurial, women and career development, and community building and sustainability. With the networks that she has gained, Dr. Jordan recently formed the Ultimate Women's Network for innovative idea exchange, engagement, share resources, problem solving, and business networking specifically for women. Dr. Jordan fully understands that individuals today wears many hats and life has put many demands on all of us. And if not careful, people will find themselves out of sync with life. They are living an unfulfilled life. This doesn't have to happen. Her recent book, The Art of Juggling, will give tools, strategies, and a plan to put in place to create the balance needed in pursuing dreams and living your best life. So I want to welcome to our GLF stage, Dr. Sylvia Jordan. Dr. Jordan.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Chairman. And I just really want to commend you on your leadership and having and hosting this event. I've always been a part of it for several years, and it has a deep place in my heart. And as you were reading my bio, I'm thinking so much was developed in me by attending the leadership conferences and the formats and meeting your parents and just all the other presenters that have been on the virtual stage these last couple of days. This has been a great forum, and I'm honored to be a part. So thank you so much. And so the topic that I'm going to talk about is personal discipline in national development. So let's get started, and we'll go from there. So here we are. Is it showing up? Let's see. All right, so we're going to talk about the importance of discipline in national development. And we can all agree, wait, we skipped something here, let's see. So let's discuss and analyze together, first of all, that we're kingdom citizens. If you live in a city, you're part of city development and planning. I'm sure that many of us have been strategists, and we've had some strategic thinking, and we've just thought about our whole lives, our whole companies, our whole organizations, and just where we are in the midst of the pandemic that we're in. And we all have a sense of the need for governance to make sure that we are living and leading correctly in these times. And I believe, as we've always been taught, that we are leaders. We've all developed to be leaders, or should be on a course for leadership. That we are not followers, but we're followers becoming and emerging as leaders. And we know that if you are a leader, you must lead and not follow. And so we can all agree, and I think everybody can raise their hand and say, the world is in a crisis. And it's not just one part of the world or one part of the globe. The entire world is in a crisis. And so when you think about a crisis, there is upheaval on every hand. There is wars, there are rumors of wars, there's fighting in the streets, there's turbulence on every side. And in fact, I was reading in the newspaper this week that this weekend we have Halloween, we have I think it's going to be a blue moon, it's going to be the hurricanes will be hitting us here in the United States. And I mean, this is all happening in a matter of days, and not to mention what's happening in Nigeria and what's happening in France. And so we are in a crisis. And so what are we going to do while we're in this crisis? And, you know, just since we've been in the pandemic, I've often thought about my fearless leader, Dr. Miles Monroe. What would he be saying at this time? And I'm sure that he would have a lot to say in the times that we're in. And so one thing that I do believe that I hear him say is that we must be willing to get in this battle. We must have disciplined ourselves to make sure that we impact, we influence, and we do our part in national development with the crises that we're in. So we cannot sit idle. We cannot stand by and just wait until this passes over. But we must be willing to get in this battle with our leadership, and to make sure that we have positioned ourselves with having disciplined our lives to get involved. And so, you know, when we're in this whole pandemic season, and not only the pandemic season, because we're soon going to come out of it, but we've got to make sure that we have developed ourselves we've become creative, that we have developed ourselves to handle the battle that we're in, because we know, you know, even in the Bible, things are going to get even more tougher. And so we've got to make sure that we're doing our part in this battle. So I want to, when we talk about personal discipline and national development, I like to bring it down and narrow it in a little bit closer to where we are. So what we have to do is understand what needs to be developed in our country, in our city, and in our community. And as I said, we cannot sit on the sidelines. We must get involved. We must continue to move forward. And one important point that we must do is to build and establish relationships. All too often, I have found so many people in the Christian environment that they stay among themselves. They never get out into the community. They never venture out of the four walls of the church. And so in times of crises, when you need people, you're not able to rely on others because you haven't built and established relationships and networks. And so I want to just really challenge everyone to make sure that you're building relationships outside of the church, that you're building networks outside of the church, because if you don't, it's just not good. It's just not good at all. Excuse me. And so you've got to build and establish relationships. The other point that I want to make is that we have to research and study our nation. We need to see exactly what is needed in our nation now. Because things have changed so much, we've got to make sure that we zero in on what's needed, because what was needed even a year ago is different than what is needed now. And so research and study your community to see what needs to be done. I got a phone call just a couple of weeks ago from a Caucasian sister of mine, and she wanted to know if I knew of any young person that could start an organization similar to the Black Lives Matter movement. And I was a bit taken back by that, because first of all, if you've never been on, well, they've since changed it, but the Black Lives Matter movement here in the United States has been one to cause and raise attention that Black Lives Matter. There are too many killings of young Black lives. But also on their website, they had some things that was not lining up with our values as believers. And they have fully embraced the the gender identity confusion that is in the world today. So some of their values don't line up with what I believe and what many believers believe in. And so because of that, people have said we should not align ourselves with Black Lives Matter. And I had to tell her Black Lives Matter, but their philosophy and their goals don't line up with what I believe, but Black Lives Matter. So she wanted to know if I could identify a Christian that would be willing to start another organization similar to Black Lives Matter. And I said, you know what? I can name some people to do that, but they have to themselves want to take that challenge on, because it leads me to my next point. You cannot go with the loudest voice. As we are veering to stay on track and to focus on our community, we've got to make sure that we just don't jump off and jump on any train that's moving. We've got to make sure that we stay precise in, again, what we've been called to do, what we know we should do, what our community needs, and that's what we focus on. So I challenged her to just think again about who that could be, because I did not want to give that task and put that weight on anybody who did not feel the call to start an organization of a Black Lives Matter that did not have all the other stuff attached to it. And so it leads me to my next point. You can't go off the cuff. As we want to develop our nation and our community, again, I want to talk about our community because that makes it a little bit more tangible, is that you can't go off the cuff. You can't just say, okay, I want to change that. You've got to be really strategic in what you want to do. And I know Charissa said the other day, you know, when the elephant comes in the room, I'm going to eat that as lunch, but you got to take one bite at a time. You cannot be willing to, or should not be willing just to tackle everything. You've got to be really, really persistent in being clear in what you want to tackle. So personal discipline and national development, it starts with a decision. And so you've got to make a decision that, Lord, here am I, use me. I believe that there's some things in my life that allows me to be the leader that you've called me to be. And with that, I'm going to make a decision to get involved in my community. I'm going to make a decision to stand up and be counted. I'm going to make a decision that I believe that what you have given me, I can give to others. And I believe that this country needs me, this city needs me, my community needs me, because you are needed. Because there are a lot of voices out there, and there are a lot of people that don't have the right motives, that have the wrong motives, that are getting attention. And so we who are believers, we who have the wisdom of God, we who have God Almighty on our side, we must be willing to make that decision to get involved in our nation, our city, our community, because we're definitely needed. And so with that, we must be disciplined to stay in our lane. It's easy to fight many, many battles, but God requires us to fight one battle at a time. And so again, I believe that everybody, if you're attending this virtual conference, I believe that you have a desire for leadership. You are a leader. You know what it means to have strategic thinking. You are a person that believes in governance, and that you are willing to be used in these times, because I believe God is saying, I need you during these times. So stay in your lane. You know, you can't do everything. I believe you've got to build a committed team of others who are aligned with you. So not only can you get in the battle by yourself. You need to bring others with you that will make the load a little bit easier, that you can bounce things off of, bounce your thinking off of, get your strategies together, and making sure that you've got others committed with you. Because, you know, one man cannot be an island, and you cannot fight many battles all by yourself. The Bible says, unless two walk together, unless they're agreed. So find somebody that you can align yourself with, and then tackle the problems again in your community. We often think of nation, but I like to bring it down to your community, because your community is something that you can definitely influence. I do believe that you cannot address every cause, every need, every crisis. You cannot do that. You cannot spread yourself too thin that you're not effective at all. I think the old term was the jack of all trade and the master of none. I have a husband who is extremely gifted, and he could do many, many things, but then he recognizes that there are some things he just cannot do. And I'm the same way. He has rubbed off on me that I can do a lot, but then there's some things that I just cannot do. And there's some causes I just cannot fight. I was recently asked to be on a board, a community board of directors of a organization here in our city, and that was always a dream of mine, is to be on a corporate board of directors, you know, here in my community. And so the opportunity came, and they are a large organization that affects the entire world. And they asked me, you know, can you sit on our board? And I had to give it some deep thought, because sitting on that board was going to mean it was going to be a time commitment. It was going to be a commitment of attending meetings. They have social functions. They have the corporate board meetings, and then you'll have subcommittee meetings. And I had to give it some serious thought. And I had to say, you know, it was very, very disappointing, but I had to say no. The big two-letter word that many times changes our life, and I had to say no. And so the president of the organization, he said, well, can we just have lunch and can we talk? So we had lunch, and he said, let's do this. Will you be my personal advisor? And that means, can I just pick up the phone and call you when I need to ask you a question or get your wisdom? And I said, now that I can do. I can be your personal advisor, but unfortunately, at this season of my life, I cannot sit on your board. And so we've got to recognize when we have to say no. We have to recognize that we cannot address every cause, every need, every crisis in our country.